How do you go from this
Here he comes. Take it to the next level.
to this
Put me over.
to this?
I'ma knock your ass silly.
How do you go from hitting the random video game mashup lottery to not even being relevant anymore? It's definitely not for a lack of popularity, due to the fact that the community drools over the fact that there could possibly be a remake of the first two games. But wasn't there a third one? Let me tell you about how a franchise accidentally struck gold and threw it all away by not staying true to its loyal fans and its own product. But before we kick things off, please consider hitting that subscribe button and liking the video so that the YouTube algorithm gods can bless it. Let's get into it. The year 2003 was a great time in gaming. A time where gaming corporations were willing to take more chances when it came to developing a game. The PS2 was also thriving well in 2003, giving us classics such as SSX Tricky and NBA Street 1 and 2. Both of these were produced by
EA Sports,
a branch-off company of EA out to only produce extreme sports titles. So how did Def Jam Vendetta come about? Well, that's a story for you. EA was partnered with WCW to produce a wrestling game, WCW Mayhem 2, when current billionaire Vince McMahon, CEO of WWE, acquired all WCW assets, leaving EA and Aki, the engine used in WWF No Mercy, widely regarded as the best wrestling game engine ever to scramble. When Josh Holmes, lead designer of NBA Street, had the brilliant idea of calling the executives at Def Jam to acquire the license to their artist names for a fighting game.
They're like, well, what if you did something with hip hop artists and fighting, and they're like, that's genius, we should totally do that. And we're like, oh, no, we're brainstorming. This is a terrible idea, you should not do this. Like, whatever you do, don't do that. And they're like, no, that's great. And then somebody was like, I have a friend at Def Jam, we should talk to them.
Why were you so, why was it like, no way, don't do that?
Because it was ridiculous. It was like, you're gonna mix hip hop and fighting and
Did you just think this will not go over well if this becomes a real thing?
like, how is this a thing? Like,
Right.
how is this actually gonna work?
What should have ended in disaster ended up being a complete home run. I mean, rappers, wrestling, who would have thought those two combos would mash well together? Those who know, know. And those who don't, man, I feel for you, man, because you missing out. You need to play that game. Play the game. Def Jam Vendetta released in April of 2003 to critical praise. Well, mostly. While new fans loved all the gameplay features, old wrestling fans felt right at home with Vendetta, as its weak and strong grappling animations was lifted straight from past Aki Engine games. Not to mention, there's rappers in the game. I'm telling you, the first time I did this,
Oh my God! Here comes the avalanche, baby.
I was hooked. I mean, I was 9 years old when this game released, so I had never seen anything like this, let alone having recognizable rappers beating the crap out of each other. The story mode has you, the no dialogue having Street Fighter, building your way up the fight scene and taking down the antagonist D-Mob's fighters. Along the way, you'll earn money, respect, and you'll attain different girlfriends. Each girlfriend has a photo gallery, and it's unlocked once you win the fight as the girl you chose. Now you can either keep your old girl or you can roll with the new one. But the main interest here is your ex. But she's with D-Mob now, and he has no problem letting you know.
Stare all you want, little man. I'm the one making her sweat now.
Bro, I know he was hurt. That man said, I'm making her sweat now. You begin fighting fictional characters, and then a boss fight, which is normally a rapper. And let me just say this now, Ludacris is hard. I'm not gonna spoil nothing else for you, but he hard. And I don't mean that in a good way. But, like I said before, play it. Just play it. Def Jam Vendetta had far exceeded any of EA's expectations, which means they had to follow up. And boy, did they follow up. Def Jam Fight for New York was more than a sequel. It was a completely polished version of Vendetta, with way more fighters, celebs, and rappers this time, along with more stylish and downright insane blazing moves. The story mode takes place immediately after the events of the first. Now, instead of fighting D-Mob, you fight for D-Mob against none other than hip-hop legend who plays as Crow. I mean, what more could you ask for? Fashion is huge in the world of hip-hop, and in the previous game there was no option for customizing your character. In Fight for New York, the options are endless. From shoes, to jewelry, to clothes with different variations to wear those clothes. I mean, you don't even get this type of customization in today's games. The game world felt alive, and it wasn't even open world. Needed a haircut? Go see Stingray down in Staten Island. Needed some tats? Go visit Manny's tattoo shop. How about some new clothes? Snowman got you down at Syndicate Urban Streetwear. The game was a smash everywhere, and is still one of the best fighting games of all time, with tournaments still going on to this day. There's even a banned character list for competitive play, which is actually insane when you think about it. You know you made a great game when it is still being played almost 20 years later competitively. So here we are, that part of the video where I tell you about the fatal crash and burn that was Def Jam Icon. Here we go. But before I tell you this, I gotta tell you a quick story. Def Jam Icon was one of the first games released in PlayStation 3's life cycle. And trust me, there weren't many during that first year. That year, I think I begged and pleaded and got in the best graces with my parents as possible because they stood in line at Best Buy all night for the PlayStation 3. And you can imagine how elated I was to be the only one out of my friends to say they played the new Def Jam game. And then I pop that disc in and I see this. That may have been the most disappointed I've ever been about a video game in life. I mean, why? How? Who did this? Who was smoking at EA that day? Oh, it was EA Chicago. EA Chicago was notably known for Fight Night Round 3, and they were in charge of making the next Def Jam game due to several lead designers who left EA Vancouver. A realistic boxing game mixed with over-the-top wrestling moves? That'll work, right?
Wrong!
At this point, it's been several years since the last Def Jam game. Plus, we were in a new console generation, and everything was about innovation. Which somehow translates to no more Aki engine, no more blazing moves, and no more heads-up display. Yes, no more heads-up display. The idea was that your fighter would be visibly beaten and battered, and that was your cue that you were hurt. The concept fell completely short due to the fact that they tried to take way too many chances. Yes, they had good ideas. The environmental attacks were cool, but how you had to execute it was completely flawed. Like an invisible turntable? Really? And the story, my goodness. Prior Def Jam games were about an underground fight scene. Def Jam Icon makes you feel like these are random dudes fighting at a gas station, and one forgets that he's in a street fight and starts DJing all of a sudden. Like, it's too much. Why are we building a record label now? Why are we fighting in front of someone's house instead of a bar or a ring? Who's in charge of all these whack ideas?
You ever wonder what the bottom of an Avatar shoe looks like? Well, bam! There it is.
Boy, if you don't get
Meet Kudo Sonoda, head developer at EA Chicago, and the lead to take on this project. Prior to this, he was responsible for Army Men Air Attack, we know Army Men, and WDL War Jets. Ever heard of that? Yep, thought so. Remember the girlfriends you could fight to unlock as fightable characters? That's all gone, along with half of the roster size, 27. To put that in perspective, Def Jam Fight for New York had 74 playable characters. 74. You do the math. Despite Mr. Kudo claiming that everyone in the hip-hop community is banging down our door right now. Right. What once was a fast-paced fighting fused wrestling hip-hop conversion masterpiece is now reduced to an uninspired, clunky street boxing game with half-baked ideas and a story mode that is a complete 180 from the games that came before it. With poor reviews and scores mostly everywhere, with Metacritic giving it a 68, while user score is a 4.1 out of 10. A huge fall from grace and was a complete letdown to me and the fan base. Not long after the release of Icon, EA Chicago was no more. Any chance of Def Jam Icon 2 were lost, and there hasn't been another Def Jam game since.
But what about that other Def Jam game? You talking about Def Jam Rap Star?
I'm a Def Jam rap star. Look at me, boy.
That wasn't a fighting game. Anyway.
Fans, myself included, all hope for that next Def Jam game, or even a remaster of the prior duology. Being teased by Def Jam's Twitter post does not feel too good. Assuming that a remaster does come, it'll be a nightmare to get all those great tracks back on the game due to licensing issues and some of the artists not even being signed to the label anymore. But you never know. I never thought the GTA trilogy would be remastered, and look how that went. Hey yo, that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. This is a lot different from how I made my last video, considering I'm actually showing my face this time. But this is the new standard to come. Consider hitting the subscribe button and like if you actually enjoyed this. Also, if you have not checked it out, check out my last video. NBA Live had another fatal crash and burn just like this one. I will see you guys in the next video. This is Mr. Foster.